I had a picture of okay.
Let's see.
So the whole reason I think that
All right, sorry that took so long.
no worries.
All right, are you guys ready? All right. This is number one.
Oh,
That is
pretty.
beautiful.
I'm going to try to pick out some of the better ones, okay?
Wow.
That's gorgeous.
And then just some samples that I wanted to try different techniques on. So here's
Look at that.
here's one. And, okay. And of course, this one, I went and turned my back and the dumb egg went and rolled down the table. And the
Oh no.
and the floor wasn't kind to it. So let's see.
There's a Pasanka artist that I follow on TikTok of all things, and she actually makes jewelry. So she does like
Yes.
cabochon jewelry with the ones that break.
Well, I'm doing some investigation. I don't know Ukrainian. I'm not Ukrainian. I'm Puerto Rican. Go figure. Anyway, I guess it's like 1,000-year-old technique. It's been done around the world by different societies, and that's something I'm really think I am a scribe and also do eliminations, and I'm trying to figure out how I can put this in my persona. And here's another one. Now these are samples of different ones I've been trying, different techniques. Okay. So anyway, but like I said, and this was a color I've been trying to make. My Shire has a dragon as our heraldry, and this is, I'm trying to make this color for a dragon egg. Anyway, that's what I do.
Those are lovely.
Thank you. So that's the reason why I'm interested in this block printing.
Well, I want to welcome Anya and Mac and Christina who joined us. Do we have Mac or Christina or both? Welcome, Sarah.
I believe Anya does Ukrainian eggs. That was my recollection. Anya?
More like Czech.
Good.
I've done the Ukrainian style, the pisanki, but I usually do the Czech version of those.
Are the Czech the black and red only?
The Czech ones do a lot of blue and white.
Okay.
The Ukrainian, as far as I know, the color palette, or it goes from white to yellow to red to black. That's
Right.
all I've ever seen, but somebody might know better than I on that one.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've come up to, my daughter and I both have come up to. And of course I vary and I go to a lot of wild colors. I'm trying to modernize what I do. Yeah. When I come from the Caribbean, what do you expect, right? So, but anyway, yeah, it's the white egg, and then you put the wax on that, and then you start with yellow, and then you wax what you want to keep yellow, and then you'll go to your next kind of lighter color, maybe a blue, light green, and then you go into like a purple, and then you end up with red and black. So that's as far as I know, as far as the Ukrainian Pazanki. And their designs are a little more of the church type, the crosses, heraldry from their king and queen who used to be, and a lot of pagan symbols. But I'm interested in the check because I love blue and white. I might have to look at that. Thank you.
So I know Alan has something to share, and Anya's got a lot more to share because she's really into this. So, Mistress Ellen, you're a little later than we are here, and this is your evening. So, if you would like to
Fantastic.
declare
All
when
right.
we start, then we can finish our chit chat afterward.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds perfect. Yes, it is a bit late for me. Like I said a little bit earlier, I'll start by introducing myself. I am Mistress Elen verch Phelip. I am from Ansteorra, the barony of Bryn Gwlad, and that is the Austin, Texas area. I'm pretty sure that some of you might maybe have seen me before. I tend to drop some of my links into different Facebook groups or whatever. I have a YouTube channel where I make clothes and I talk about mostly medieval and Renaissance, but also a couple of other later eras too.
Can you link your YouTube in the...
My YouTube is already linked in there, although I don't know if let me go ahead and relink it because I don't know if y'all get access to the chat after you come in, so I will drop that again.
Thank you.
And that's actually the video of my block printing project. My partner and I play in the SCA, and we also play, well, he plays, I dabble in another game as well. And he is being recognized with a peerage in that particular game. So I wanted to make him something very special and, a little bit out of the ordinary. I wanted to wow the other game a little bit. So I decided that I was going to try my hand at block printing. My background in art, I have an art degree, and part of that was a bunch of classes on printmaking. So I have a little bit of experience in doing some printmaking. But I hadn't really done it since college. But my YouTube name is Opus Eleni. So there it is. I just dropped it also in the chat. And that's me on all platforms. So I have a page on Facebook. I have an Instagram. I have a TikTok if you're into that. I'm not really into that, but I'm trying. And then I'm also on YouTube, all under the same name. So you can find me everywhere with that. So basically, like I said a little bit earlier, I'm gonna be really informal about this. I don't have, a handout or, a very concise anything. So I just thought I would talk you through what I did and then maybe take some questions afterwards if anybody has any questions. And I will apologize in advance because I have a very loud, angry cat and a very tired, potentially vocal baby who is trying very hard to get my attention. What do you need, love? You're just gonna stand there. Okay. I have a very they just like to stand behind me while I talk. Okay.
9-year-old curiosity.
So the first thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to decide the kind of project that I was going to make for this particular garment, and I decided that what I wanted to do was keep the garment relatively simple. So it is a simple tea tunic, and again I'm going to drop a link to that Facebook or to that Instagram picture so you can see what it looks like when it's finished. I think that's the right one. Is that the right one? Double checking. I think so. And I wanted to do an all-over fabric print to make sure that it was the fabric that really stood out. And I chose to do, he has a badge. This is his heraldry. It is a Triskelion of dragon heads with an amulet in the middle. I think that's an amulet. I could be wrong. I don't do a lot of heraldry. So I knew I wanted that to be the design that I put on it. And so what I did was I printed this out a little bit bigger, and I went and looked in all of my printmaking supplies, and I found, well, let me actually back up just a little bit. So the history of printed fabric in Europe, right? The earliest printed fabrics that we have are actually not European. They date from the 2nd century CE in China, in Han Dynasty China. And from there, it spread to India and then into Eastern Europe, Egypt, and then Western Europe by the 12th and 13th centuries. I'm sorry, late 13th centuries. And they were most popular in what is now Italy and Germany. There are some textiles that are still available, but some of them actually, even the ones that are in museums and have been like authenticated, have kind of come out as being Victorian fakes, copies, right? And so those ones, if you look into them and you're looking for what might be considered accurate versus the Victorian copies, the differences are, one, they're generally dated to the 12th century in Rhineland, Germany, and then the other tell is that the figure will be the thing that is printed, right? So the main figure is the thing that is printed instead of being, you know, carved out and the background being printed. These were, I believe, and this honestly isn't my focus, so I could be getting things a bit wrong as well. I tried to be accurate in my research, but this is absolutely not my focus. So I'm going to go ahead at the very end and I will drop a couple of links. There is a really, really great thread in the Printed Fabrics of the Middle Ages Facebook group. If you search Victorian, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I see Etienne nodding because I'm pretty sure that I've seen you in that Facebook group. And I'm pretty sure that you were commenting on that thread. So those are...
they have a very specific look about them too. So once you get an eye for it, they stand out like a sore thumb.
They are very reminiscent of William Morris prints. So if you look at, if you are familiar at all with the Edwardian artist, William Morris, he did a lot of wallpaper design, did a lot of like figurative graphic art. A lot of the things that are, you know, the Victorian copies look like his work. And if you compare that to some of the actual wall hangings, Italian wall hangings, and ecclesiastical garments, you can see the difference. It's like night and day. So yes, anything from Rhineland that is dated to about the 12th century or 13th century, probably not so good. And if you're not sure, I highly recommend dropping a link and asking in the block or the Printed Textiles of the Middle Ages. Everybody there is, one, amazing, and two, incredibly knowledgeable, way more than me. So toss it in there and double check. I was not terribly concerned about historicity here, honestly. I wanted something that looked real good, and I wanted something that was plausible enough. So I chose to work with modern materials, including all of my substrates, all of my paint, all of my tools. I was not looking at, you know, Ciannini's recipe for inks. That was not, I do enough of that stuff in my calligraphy. I didn't need to bring it into this. So going back to, now that we've, you know, gotten the history out of the way, I had taken my, don't do what I do. I took my design and I went, yes, this is a lovely design. And then what I did was I took a pencil and I rubbed the back of the design and I put it on my linoleum and I went to trace it. And I had this lovely, beautiful carved block and it was great. And then I printed it and was like, it's backwards. Because I forgot in the time between my college classes and the carving of the block that it prints backwards. So I texted my partner and I was like, hey partner, tell me how important it is for these dragon heads to be facing this direction. And he has been the principal herald of our kingdom. And he looked at me and he said, it's very important, actually. And I said, oh. So I threw out that block because I was mad at it. And I went and I flipped it around in my scanner and I reprinted it backwards, so that then when I actually went through, right, we've all forgotten it once. You know, I'm actually pretty proud that that was like the worst mistake that I made with this project, quite honestly. So in order to transfer, actually, let me talk about substrates first. So historically, what these would be made out of would be wood. They would be carved out of wood. Wood degrades very slowly when you are doing fabric printing. So with softer things that you're printing, you know, I don't remember if it was Ellen or Nadine who was talking about doing potato block printing in school, you know, like you carve the potato block. It was Ellen, okay. If you remember at all, those potatoes are very soft, and eventually they start to degrade. The edges get, you know, not as sharp, and it's easy for the image to degrade over time. Wood doesn't do that quite as easily, especially if you're using a harder wood. It can pretty much go forever. And in India, they still have block printing houses. I actually follow a couple of them on Instagram because I am a sucker for craft, right? And they still use carved wooden blocks, and they're like they're so fast. It's amazing. And I hate carving wood, and honestly, I'm not really great at it. So I decided that I was going to take an easier way out and use printing linoleum. So this, I have a piece of it here actually left over. So this is printing linoleum. It comes in a couple thicknesses and a couple qualities. You can get really like higher quality stuff. The problem with this that I discovered when I was printing, it also is soft. And I actually have my block here, and you can see the edges of this block are no longer as crisp as they were when I carved it. And as I was using it, it actually started cracking. So I have a couple of cracks in here because of how many times I used it. I mean, I basically block printed 3 yards of fabric completely with this. If I were to do it again, I would still not use wood because I still don't like carving it. But there is a different kind of linoleum block. It looks like this. It is backed with wood. It's a little bit thinner, but it's much harder. I don't know if you can hear me tapping on it. So this is not going to degrade quite as much when you're doing a large amount of fabric printing over and over and over again. An alternative to this is that there are several people in the SCA now who have laser cutters. And so they will do things like laser cut wood for you, or laser cut, Countess Violet does plexiglass as well. And both of those options are really great, especially if you know the person or can contact the person. You can get a custom printed or custom cut piece just for yourself. They're not inexpensive, but also kind of worth it because this was a pain for me. Morgan, I see you have your hand up. Is there a question that you'd like to?
Or just a, don't do what I did. Waterproof those linoleum blocks. You have to be able to wash them. The material that they are made out of is a compressed paper. So I usually do a waterproof Mod Podge or an outdoor Mod Podge sealant on them. Hopefully before I use them, but not usually. So,
that's fair.
Yeah,
I would not have thought of that. So
I'm good at destroying things, so I've usually done the hard parts first.
Good tip. Fantastic. Oh, Italy too. I didn't realize that Italy still had printing studios. That's really awesome. All of the ones that I have come across on social media have been Indian. So yeah, if there are like social media of those things, I would love to see that because again, sucker for craft.
There was an article, there's a family, it's I think 400 or 500 years in the same family. And there's some really wonderful online articles with this wall of these wooden blocks. They talk about what happens when the block starts to degrade. They carve a new one, exactly like the old. Talk a little bit about their ink making process. I actually picked some paint colors. I'm going to be block printing canvas awning, new summer gear. I'm hoping we get to camp soon.
As far as I know, that article went around on the Facebook group. So if you go back probably about within the last 9 months, I want to say.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'll check it out. Thank you.
But I bought paint color trying to match basically what I saw in the photos so that I could be as close to their kind of iron ink color as possible.
I love it. That's amazing. What was I? Okay, so now that I had decided, made a poor decision to work with this linoleum, I needed to make sure that my image was flipped from what it should be, and then I transferred it using that method where you cover the back with graphite, mostly because I had misplaced my carbon paper and I didn't know where that was. So I did the very fifth grade thing of covering the back with graphite and then tracing over the front. Worked out fine. And then I used carving instruments to carve away. I have a couple of different sets here. Some of them are better than others. Some of them I like better than others. So this is your bog standard speedball. You can get this at any, I don't want to say any big box craft store because Joann's doesn't necessarily have them. Michael's sometimes has them, but like if you have an art store in your area, you can generally find these, and they're on like Amazon or other big craft places. Apologies for that.
University bookstores as well carry those.
Oh, okay, cool. I don't like these. I find that, so the way that this one works is you have your handle and then this tightens up and down like an X-Acto knife, and then you can pull the cutting blade out, and it comes with several different kinds. I don't like them because not only is this uncomfortable to hold for me, but I found that it undoes while I carve. So I bought new ones. Again, just from Amazon. These are not, strictly speaking, high quality. I don't foresee myself doing a ton more of these projects, mostly because I didn't actively... There are things that I love more than the printing process. And for me to engage in doing that much fabric printing, one, I have to be really jazzed about the project, or two, I have to love doing something to spend that much time on it. And I just don't love this quite as much. I mean, I would love to do something like printed borders or something like that, but this was just a lot. So I just got these. I don't know if the image is flipped for you. It's flipped for me, but it's Niji, and they come in several of them. You can get several of them in a set. They come with a little sharpening stone, but the blades don't come out, so they're static. So these are much easier for me to hold, and I felt much more stable using them. I did get them on Amazon as well.
Just to pop in real fast. The Dollar Tree is now carrying the knockoff version. If you want to, I haven't played with them. I'm assuming the knife quality is awful, but I'm going to see if I can do something with them.
I mean, for like $4 or less,
like $1, yeah, $1 for 4 knives.
I'll take it.
And one of them's round.
If you were going to be teaching a class in person, that would be a really great set of tools to like put together for students. So,
yeah, I'm always trying out other people's toys. So,
heck yeah, or largesse. That would be a really great largesse too. To like, if you have
we have a largesse competition coming up.
There you go. Okay, so the nice thing about having a bunch of different knives in different sizes is that you can vary a lot of your line quality, so you can get these really kind of delicate lines over here. I didn't play a ton with line quality because I wanted this print to be fairly bold and graphic. I wanted it to stand out from the fabric that I was using, so it's pretty straightforward. And again, it's been like 12 years since I've done anything like this. I wanted to keep it relatively simple and not burn myself out at this stage of the process. So once I did that, I asked Viscountess Violet what she uses to do her fabric printing, and she told me the Jacquard Neo Opaque Lumiere, these guys here. And I can also put together, I think there was a list of materials that I had sent, and it should be in the event, just so that everybody can see what I used. For this particular project, since I was using black linen, I wanted kind of a pewter gunpowder color, or gunmetal color, so I used a mixture of black and silver since they were out of the gunmetal color when I went to go buy it at Dharma, and it worked pretty well, actually. It's like not quite in your face, but like a little in your face. So that was kind of the effect that I wanted to. I experimented with a couple of different things. I got this brayer, which is again not super high quality, but it works okay. I actually did not enjoy using this as much as I enjoyed just using this little sponge stampy thingy. I got it from, I got like a 5-pack of them, because again, these not high quality materials, they degrade pretty quick. But it worked out pretty well, and they were like $2 for like a huge bag of them from the stencil area of Joann's. So they were not expensive. I didn't mind, using a bunch of them. For me, this ended up, Pouncer, thank you. This ended up giving me a better application, because I was getting kind of some streaks with the brayer. I was not getting like an even paint application, and I don't know, it was probably user error. Again, this was my first project of this kind, so I don't know if I wasn't using the paint at a consistency that was optimal, and that was why I was having problems with it, or whether this is just a better tool to use. But it worked out okay for me. I did find that, especially with these very thin lines, I had to stop and sacrifice a toothbrush to kind of like gently scrub out the paint that would, wrong type for that application. Yeah, it could be. It could be. Like I said, this is not a thing that I did any kind of scientific study of before I just jumped right in, because that's my jam. But like I said, because I think of the nature of this kind of paint, it is an acrylic paint. As it was drying in between uses, I was getting some drying inside the little tiny lines. So I would say about every 15 minutes or so, I had to kind of stop and gently, scrub it clean and everything, just to make sure that I was getting like those very fine lines cleanly. And that was okay. Again, is that best practice? I have no idea, but it worked for me for that one, application. So your mileage may vary. It was probably not the most efficient way to do it, and probably I should have done more research first. So again, don't do as I do, or do and figure it out the hard way, because I'm a big fan of make mistakes and learn things. Yes, I agree. Definitely differences between ink and paint. This was definitely a very different consistency than the printmaking paint that I've used before, where you do the brayer and then the burnishing and then the thing and all of that stuff. So yeah, it just may have been a matter of wrong tool for application, like Morgan said. So what I did to make sure, so because this is kind of a triangular shape, I decided that what I was going to do is I was going to arrange these in rows, right? So I had a row of upright ones and then a row of upside down ones offset. So we had one here and then one here and then one here and then one here. And in order to do that, I tried initially sketching out those triangles to make a matrix in chalk. I really think that would have worked if I didn't make the triangles too small, but I did. So what I ended up doing was just kind of eyeballing it. I used the vertical lines of those stacked triangles, because it ended up being 2 vertical lines with a bunch of, triangles in between them. I ended up just using the vertical lines or the horizontal lines as guides for each row, and it turned out fine. But I wish that I hadn't spent so much time marking out 3 yards of that matrix, which was ridiculous of me, but here we are. As far as the application, I personally found that, well, I did this over a long weekend. The first day, I started off doing this on the ground of my apartment with a length of folded wool, like thick wool, like wool melton. And I folded it over and I put it on there, and it worked just fine, except my back hated me. So then I decided the next day to clear off my dining room table, and I laid out the fabric underneath of the linen that I was printing, and it actually worked even better. So I think probably not having the layer of carpet also, I probably could have skipped having that wool on the ground while I was printing, but I was worried that the texture of the carpet would show through. So I wanted something a little bit smoother to act a bit more like a cushion in between the carpet and the linen that I was printing. But when I did move up to the table and had that very sturdy, flat surface underneath the wool, that worked out really well for me. I know that some people have used like fleece or you know, things just to make a tiny bit of a cushion and not have it on a flat surface. I know that, at least according to the Instagram things that I've seen, the Indian fabric houses generally tend to print directly on the table and not have any kind of cushion underneath, at least that I can see. But I did a couple of test prints, and I did not find that I was getting the amount of paint into the linen on a flat surface with no padding that I wanted. So I added a cushion underneath to see if it would help, and it did. So again, is that best practice? For that particular project for me in that circumstance, yes. It may be different using wood. They may have special tables set up. They may have a technique that I'm not familiar with. So again, your mileage may vary. And that's, I did heat set them. I did heat set everything once I was finished doing all of the printing. For my purposes, because I didn't want to print more fabric than I absolutely had to, I actually marked out all of the pieces of the tunic first. So I marked them out in chalk, and then I went over them with a gel pen so that when I, was manipulating the fabric, the chalk wouldn't come off, and I would have those lines that I needed to be cutting on later all completely done. So that actually worked out really well, because I did have some areas that I didn't end up having to print. And if I had just printed the entire amount of fabric, I would have had a bunch of scraps of fabric that I had spent a whole bunch of time printing, but weren't large enough to actually do anything else with that would have been useful. So I would have been really mad about having all of those offcuts that I've spent like an extra hour printing. So I'm glad that I did that. That worked out really well for me, and I would definitely recommend that as a best practice. But yeah, so that's kind of mostly been my experience of this one particular project of block printing. So I would love to open up the floor to any questions that anybody might have, any mistakes that I might have made, or even just other opinions. I know there are other people on here who have probably done way more fabric printing than I have, and would definitely love them to tell me how I messed up so that all of you don't mess up the same way.
You have started a journey. I have rolled down the hill. Full bore.
It was a great fun project, and again, yeah. I don't know that I love the process enough to continue like hardcore research and like more trial and error. Yep. But I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, as really far fun. As like the sponge goes, this is the thing that I have found to be hands down the speediest, most wonderful toy ever. This comes from just like the paint department. It's like one of those little wall trim painters.
Yeah.
And so if you load that up with paint, I usually apply it with a palette knife and load the sponge, and then just kind of smooth out the surface so there's not too much. But what the flocking, I don't know if you can see it. So the flocking between the sponge and the stamp keeps too much of this paint from going up into your block. So you were saying you had a problem with it getting a little goopy. So this helps keep it from going into your negative spaces and kind of cleans it out. You still have to go through and clean it out with a toothbrush. That's kind of when you're applying the paint, you're also picking up lint. After a while, your block is going to need to be like deferred. So. But
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even just lengthening, the time between, having to take a break and cleaning. And I do think that the material that I used breaking down as I, was getting towards the end.
Yeah,
that one, I'm sure.
I've seen those ones mainly used for what you did previous, like the modern block printing. Because I've seen a couple of people use them for like t-shirts and stuff, but it's always so flimsy to me. I've never really wanted to play with it more than a cursory, like, nope, don't like it.
Not recommend.
Not a fan.
Nadine, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was going to ask, when you carve your image, how far down do you go?
Probably not far enough, quite honestly. I ended up doing a bunch of trial and error because I know how far down I carve when I do paper printing. And basically the way that I determined that was I carved everything out to the depth that I did for paper printing. And then I just did a bunch of test ones, and I carved down any places that were printing where I didn't want them to print, any negative spaces, I would just carve them down a little bit deeper. I think I probably have this one carved down. I would say the thin lines are probably about 1 millimeter to 1.5 millimeters deep. The negative areas are much deeper. I would say probably like a 1/4 centimeter. Maybe 3 or 4 millimeters. So they're a bit deeper. They probably could be deeper, but again, this material was flimsy enough that I had to weigh keeping this structurally sound versus getting, nice cliffs at the edges. And if I was going to work with this again, I would glue it to something that, had a little bit more heft, and maybe glue a handle on the back. Those were two things that I thought of while I was in the middle of the project and didn't feel like stopping. But I would definitely put a backing on this and then a handle so that I could hold it instead of doing this, motion for 3 days. It wasn't fun.
I was going to say, I just dug through all my little wood ones, and for the most part, the shallow details are only 1/16 of an inch deep. And the deeper areas are probably closer to maybe 1/4 of an inch deep.
Yeah, so that's a bit deeper than my negative spaces, but
when I'm carving linoleum, I just pretty much go through down to the ground. So there's a layer of fabric between the linoleum and the I usually go all the way through unless it's a fine detail.
So you can see this is the it's like an MDF particle board type thing, and then this is the actual linoleum. So you can see there's my finger for reference. I guess I could get an actual ruler, but you can see kind of how thick or how thin it is.
Do you happen to have the finished garment nearby where we could see that?
Unfortunately, it's in Houston with my partner because I gave it to him.
And he's going to be elevated.
And he's going to be elevated in August. So I actually made this. I actually gave it to him as a Yule gift in 2020. That's how long we've been waiting. He was announced right before Corona, and now he has been waiting this whole time. So he's like, I want to do it in person. And I'm like, cool.
I was trying to show you my blown out block, but apparently I actually got to this one before I destroyed it. But one of my key suggestions when you're working with a uniform shape is make sure you know which way is up.
Yes.
Yeah. So I usually do a horizontal and a vertical line. and up is super important.
Yeah,
I
that
cannot
makes
tell
sense.
you how many of my projects are out there walking around with a flipped over griffin.
This one is definitely this was up, so because it was relatively asymmetrical, it was easy for me to keep
Yeah.
track. But yeah, that's definitely really important.
I was going to say I do that too. I do the center cross, and then I work in print. Like my 30 years of working has been in the print industry, and we use the letter A to mark up, and so I just put an A and a registration cross, and good to go.
That's awesome.
So when you make your blocks, how long do they last?
If you don't mind, I'll field this one since I've got like a
no, go for it. I mean, mine lasted 3 days. So
where I put it.
that was like 3 days of like 8 hours a day of printing, but it did not last. As I could probably get like another border, but that's it.
All right, let's see if I can point out. So this is one of my oldest ones. These down here, those have been in use for a couple of years. They've printed at least, knock it off, will you? They've printed at least 10 yards of fabric between all of the little ones, probably more than that. So yeah, these are all basswood. I've got teak, which I have not played with yet, but that's much harder. But all of this is like craft store quality wood, and it survives really well. So at least, you know, when they're in about the 2-inch block range, they survive pretty decently. The linoleum ones, when I was experimenting with unbacked linoleum, it lasted 1 printing session. And then it had to get glued back into place and fixed. I have a whole catastrophe story about that. So that's why I recommend also washing or waterproofing that MDF stuff, because it just, you have to clean those blocks and then they destroy themselves if you don't.
Because I was thinking of making little pouches as gifts for my Shire members. We're a very small Shire, and and putting our dragon on the front of it, block printing the. And I was just wondering if I would have to be an artiste and make more than 2 or 3 of them.
I think if you are just doing like a dozen little bags, you probably could. Yeah, you should be totally fine.
Okay.
It'll absolutely do that.
You could probably even do that out of this stuff. Like it would definitely last you that long. I mean, there's more than a dozen of these per sleeve for his tunic, and it definitely lasted that long. So
and they can be repaired also. If it develops a crack, you can glue them back into place. So it's mainly it's not fun to work with when it's trying to wiggle all over the place. So that's why I prefer wood and linoleum blocks, because they at least they have meat to them. And when I did a 12 by 12 inch block, I was hammering on each one of those 50 times with a mallet to get a good impression.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a little excessive, but like that was an excessive project.
Nadine, what's the name of your Shire?
Pardon my growling dog.
Our Shire is Findrake Marsh, and it's the West Kingdom. So, and they're spelled. You go. Everybody else is bigger. I'm a transport from Ansteorra, and so there's maybe about 30 of us, but about 15 that are more or less play the game, I should say. And of course, I'm the oldest at 75, and we have the youngest is, I think she's like 20.
Nice range.
Yeah. And so, and it's just a very small Shire, like I said.
The shire that I started out in Mid Realm was about that big. We had about that many people.
Yeah. Well, we're
A
trying
good
to
size
keep
for a group.
people. We're trying to keep people, and the with COVID and the political entities, it's blown our shire apart. So we're trying to
Don't give up.
recruit.
Audiantum was that size when we started.
Oh yeah, and we have ironically, we are doing Fall Crown about 30 miles away. So we're all promised each other that we're all going to go help. So to bring us all back together.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for a group of that size because it's big enough to be able to get some really impressive things done, but it's small enough that you can really gel and make some good connections and form like a cohesive identity nicely. And that's something that I missed about moving. When I moved from, like this tiny shire in a college town to a huge barony. It's huge. We could be 3 baronies. It was a huge culture shock. Like, they have more heavy fighters here than we had people at all.
I went from Audiantum to Three Mountains, which is one of 3 baronies, the tri-baronial area.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a culture shock.
It was
Yeah,
fun,
because coming out of Ansteorra, which is total fighter and huge, to then we went to TP and Salem. I took care of my parents, and that was a culture shock. And then coming to this real small shire, because you kind of kick back in a big shire and just enjoy and watch everybody go by. Well, now I got to play for real.
Whoops.
Yeah, my barony will be 3 years old in December, so it's a very new barony, and there are currently 39 of us in it.
Ah,
Wow.
We are very tiny.
Congratulations on the new barony.
It was very exciting to have our first investiture and all that fun stuff. So
Our principality is getting a new barony, and we're really excited.
yeah, the barony, or I should say the shire that's just north. I think there's a shire on either side of there's one to the north and one to the south, and I think it's the one that's to the north is in the process of becoming a barony, but they're huge. They have like 150 people in the shire.
Yeah.
I don't know how they didn't be a barony before. Okay, well, it is almost 10 for me. It's almost 10 for me. So I was just going to see if there were any other questions or comments or anything before I hop off.
I was gonna throw a couple more things at you guys if you were amenable. You also do not have to carve your own block. You can buy them. Baroness Elen bought this one for me. Well, she wanted fabric and gave me blocks to print with. So, but she had these custom ordered, and I don't know where, but I could probably find out from the Baroness. But we were also talking about substrates for printing, and this is my test printer. It is just a manky little towel. So if I don't want to clear the whole table, I can just do a couple of little test prints on this. This is just not super fluffy, so it gives a nice amount of resistance.
Nice.
But also when I do print, I have a roll of this blackout material for curtains. It was given to me, so I experimented with it, but it's waterproof. So my printing surface is also when I sew, it's my ironing table. And so it's 3 feet wide by 5 feet long. And so I can do a full yard at a time. So I don't want to get paint all over my ironing board. And so I have a whole roll of this. And so I'll just roll my fabric up on the blackout curtain as I print. And then I can for me, that setup makes printing by the yard so much more reasonable than printing by the garment.
Yeah, I should definitely say that.
It takes a special amount of insanity to trace out every single piece.
I mean, For me,
Yeah.
because I knew that I had limited time and limited space to be doing this on, and a limited like time frame that I could use that surface, it made more sense to me to trace everything out first. But again, this was for a specific project, and it made more sense for me. But that may not be.
And I had a specific amount of custom blended ink that like I couldn't print more, and so. And that's another thing, like the difference in ink, your surface, your fabric, your block, and the color of the sky at midnight will all affect your print quality. So it really is a matter of playing with those three things until you find the combination that works. Like when I was, the Potters Reneg Tane asked me to see if their cookie stamps would block print. And it's like, well, it won't block print on my table, but if you put something super fluffy behind it, it mushes down and it gives you a pretty decent print. So, you know, it's like, you really have to play. But my, the linoleum blocks I had been given and the paint I had been given hated each other. The paint was very liquid, and the block had fine details that were just getting completely gooped out. And so the speedball, when you apply with the brayer and it gets really sticky, that was perfect and gave crisp, beautiful lines. So, you know, I recommend playing with your materials to see what they particularly want.
And I mean, you joke about the sky at midnight, but the level of humidity in the air makes a big difference to your paint. So it's not actually as much of a joke as you might think it is.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Yeah, living in an oven, I don't have humidity problem.
So my next experiment, which I'd like to do this next month, I picked up a screen printing press, and so I have commercial screen printing inks. And so I want to try some of the water-based commercial screen printing inks for block printing and see how that works.
Sounds amazing. I'm sure it would be fantastic.
I hope so. I'll find out. Yeah, definitely.
I've had the stuff to make my own ink for about a year now. Have I done it yet?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to make my own ink. I'm buying this in a big jug from Rionet.
We all know that collecting supplies and using supplies are two separate hobbies.
Both. That's the person who bought like 200 beads.
233.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
it was all your quilter. I understand that well.
I have it coming and going. I worked at a fabric shop as my first job. It was downhill from there. I just started out the gate collecting hobbies and crafts.
I have definitely gotten to the point where I live in a very small apartment, which is why I have my faux library behind me, because it's just my apartment behind that. So I've had to come to terms with the fact that there are things that I'm just not ever going to do, and that's okay. It's only taken me like 20 years.
I actually did have to give away all the ceramic stuff when I realized I just wasn't going to be able to fit a ceramic shop on the porch.
Now, excuse me, but you talked about a site. Was it an SCA site? Medieval.
Are you on Facebook?
Yes, I am.
The printed fabrics of Middle Ages.
Okay.
Yeah, the printed fabrics of the Middle Ages. I always want to say textiles. We are a very active, very supportive group over there. So if you have a question, like
I'll snag a link.
Yeah. And I did put a link in the chat to the Italian family block printers, which is
thank you.
Stunning.
Stunning. Well, thank you. Like I said, I've not done this before. I don't know how involved I'm going to be, but I would like to do something nice.
There is a huge spectrum of people and skill levels there. So you've got people who are like, how do I do this? I don't know anything. And you've got people, you know, like Morgan and Etienne who, you know, do this stuff as their primary, you know, art form or even, you know, day job.
Right.
So it's incredibly supportive, and the search function in there is really great too. So if you want to just search for like a beginner or start or, you know, things like that, then other posts by other people will come up and you kind of see like what people are recommending and things like that. So
And the modern decorators also use block prints as like, oh, look at this lovely little tchotchke. So if you're near a major city and you can go to their bougie decor import stores, you could probably just find wonderful examples of, you know, pseudo medieval patterns.
Well,
So-
Reno is 60 miles away, and so that's pretty.
Oh, I bet you'd have some fun shopping there.
Not as much as you think.
No?
Not as much as you think, which is surprising. But but it's okay. You know, I mean, it's not as good as Salem, Oregon, but yes, it's okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
yes,
And,
thank you.
Mistress Ellen, I want to.
I was going to say, I have to say, when you talked about linoleum printing, I thought it was the linoleum for the floors.
Everybody thinks that.
Well, because that's where it came from.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You used to be able to buy a particular type of linoleum, and when you flipped it over, it had this great rubber backing, and that's what they would carve with.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't been able to find it in the wild.
Well, last time I seen it was on a picture of it on the Titanic, because the Titanic ship had linoleum outfitted in it. So, but thank you so much, everyone. And I'm going to let everybody go, and I'm going to check your links. Now, can I plug on these links that we have here and without cutting you off, or?
Oh,
Yes.
You messed that up.
The trick is those links are gone once we turn off this Zoom
Oh,
meeting.
I better do
So
this
write
now.
them down, copy them onto your computer.
What I'm
or
gonna
something.
do as soon as I hop off of this, I'm gonna post links in the event, so it will be static there, so you can just go back to the event, and I will just post a bunch of these links
They should be in the comments underneath the event.
Yeah.
All right.
And I am recording this event. I'm going to find a way that we can keep these posted so you can go back and review.
All right. So,
Cool.
all right. Well,
thank you so much for having me, everybody. I really appreciate
Wonderful
meeting
to
all
have
of
you.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for, you know, listening to me ramble about my one project that I did with fabric printing. So that is my cue. I'm going to hop off, but feel free. Like I said, my socials are Opus Eleni everywhere, so feel free to like ping me on any of them or anything like that. I have a whole bunch of different kinds of stuff that I do. So I'm always down to nerd out about different art forms, not just clothing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Nadine, for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to join. This has been fantastic. So, and my my name or handle or whatever you want to call it is Maja, M-A-J-A Rayner, and that's who I am. So,
is that how you're found on Facebook?
Yes, it is. And I'm with the Shire Bendrake Marsh. So,
writing this down.
This is my first event coming on, so this is fun. Okay.
Well, we'll be having more.
Oh, good. Thank you.
We'll look for you in the future, Nadine.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Now, as usual, the rest of you are welcome to stay. Nadine, you could stay too if you wanted to. We just chit-chat and kill the time.
Well, I have a little bit of a cold and upset stomach. Something did not agree with me at lunch. So
okay, another time then.
Another time. Bless be to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, it is 11 p.m. for me, so I'm going to sign off as well.
Thank you so much for joining us, Christine.
It was a lot of fun.
Where are you from?
Me?
Yeah.
I am from the Barony of Buckland Cross in the East Kingdom.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here.
I was talking to Ellen before she started this. She and I talk regularly elsewhere, so
Wonderful.
I told her to send me a link and I would hop in.
Hey, thank you for
Glad to
joining
have
us.
you here.
We were talking about eggs earlier, and I pulled out some of my pictures. That's the style that I do.
Oh, your
Those are-
screen froze.
And this is another one.
We
that
lost
is-
you. Wait a minute.
It did.
You're frozen. There it comes.
there.
There.
Okay, I'm
Now we
not
got
frozen on this end, so I don't know what to do.
It's back now.
Okay. Okay. So those are very standard Czech folk art eggs. Kraslice is what they're called. And it Kraslice. Kraslice. These are designs that have been traditional for like, I don't know, a couple centuries. And there are some people that do ones like the Bisanki, the Ukrainian ones, but it's more usual to find them painted like those. And then this is another style where there's those are blobs of wax. These are similar to Bisanki. Blobs of wax, and then down in the bottom, the darker parts are paint. And because they're rubbed off, you boil them in onion skins to get this color. And then there's some modern ones. These are actually, this artist was doing these just last year. And you can see the brilliant colors and stuff that are getting used now. So, okay, just wanted to show everybody. Before I forgot,
Those are cool. Thank you.
Stock pictures. Yeah, I haven't done any Kraslice for several years now because I haven't had any place to display them. Although, talk about non-traditional, the last batch I did were all white painted with Holstein cow spots. And I sent those out to various family members, and everybody thought it was really funny. So, craziness.
Do you have a block you want to show us, Etienne?
I was just gonna say this is the laser etch. There's an Etsy merchant. It's actually a Pinzig merchant that's been selling on Etsy. Yep.
This is one that Ayla had commissioned.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I love how the same design.
Right.
Interpretations.
So, and then I did do one on a CNC machine, just a little fleur-de-lis, but it took like, this little teeny tiny design took like 6 hours to carve.
Oh,
so CNC is not fast.
Yes, but you didn't cut your fingers carving it by hand.
That is very true.
Which would have also taken 6 hours.
Yeah, you know,
Well,
she
while
was
they're
talking about carving her block backwards.
Yeah,
and I did that too with the Ansteorra Populous badge in wood.
Yep.
So I have my very own non-Ansteorra Populous badge.
Yeah. Well, like I said in the chat, we've all done it.
Yep.
I also have a sublimation printer and have done some sublimation prints, and that also you have to mirror image before, you know. And I've done that. Where it's like,
we lost your sound.
Am I there?
Sounds like you're underwater.
I hear you.
Yeah, I'm hearing just fine.
Maybe it's mine. Oh,
well,
I bet you I unplugged my speaker when I moved my monitor. Stupid thing.
Oops.
All right. Yeah.
Well, I
Now
do
I
actually
can
have
hear
a
you.
new set of headphones on the way because this has been acting up lately. So, Amazon Prime Day.
Yeah.
I was
just
trying to
bought
move my computer to get away from the glare from my work light.
I just bought a Cricut maker on Amazon Prime Day. So
Oh,
I
fun.
love mine. I love mine so much. I went a little bit overboard with doing all the things. Like, so my brother has an art project where he goes out to Waldo Lake, and he's like the prime citizen of the Republic of Waldo. So I'm in the process of making him his very own like yacht club t-shirt with my Cricut. Of course, I had to stick all the pieces together. So, but
oh, that's nice. So is that a printed vinyl?
no,
vinyl?
it's just layering vinyl, cut vinyl.
Layering. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't got any printed vinyl yet. Haven't played with that. My printer is not the greatest. So, I mean, it's a great workhorse. It's not a great quality.
Right.
Beast.
House Capuchin spent a couple of years playing around with small block printing on fabric. We ended up making like a ton of pouches out of the pieces. We were just printing on, scraps basically with regular paint. But what we ended up doing was kind of a different direction. We went looking for printing stamps. Now that everybody's so crazy for making memory books and stuff like that, there's all kinds of stamps out there that would work in period sort of settings. They were perioid, not period.
I've got a whole collection of them.
Yeah. And eventually we got to the point of doing some carving of our own, because we've got the house badge, and we've got that's on one, and I did a bunch of Slavic ones up, but they were very, very small. They were things that were like no bigger around than a marble. I actually did a lot of carving on one particular piece of 1 1/4 inch dowel. And one of the things that I found was that the carving in the end grain like that, it sort of goes on the ink. Worked great.
Your first, I always call my first few prints the thirsty prints, and those are always going to be on scrap. And then that's got your block prime. Also, whatever your dowel was made out of might have been a very open grain.
Yeah.
Which is why you usually,
whatever
when you're doing in grain, you do
standard hardware store.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the end grain is really good for not having parts of your design go chipping off into the yonder. But yeah, it does that capillary action where it's going to suck that paint in. And so I always, discard the first 3 prints of any session.
I have a piece of fabric that just has all kinds of smart stuff on it. Hi, Joanna.
Hello.
But you had said something about some material that you were using to stop the wood. What was that?
So it's called blackout lining. You can buy it at Joann's, but it's in the home decor as a lining for curtains when you don't want to be able to see light through it.
Oh,
so
I meant on the wood.
Oh,
I meant on the wood.
Waterproof Mod Podge. On my wood blocks, I don't use any sealant on my wood, or I'll soak them in coconut oil. So on the pressed linoleum ones with the pressed backing, those ones need a waterproof sealant, or they just not that one. Where'd you go? You were just here. Swear to God.
Gremlins.
Yeah.
So back in the olden days when I was in college taking printmaking, we always sealed the wood blocks with spray shellac, but that was for paper printing. So,
and I had waterproof Mod Podge on hand. So oh, I put it over here because I wanted to show you guys. Yeah. So here's a little out of that glare. So here's a back that hasn't been burst apart. I don't know if this is actually going to show up at all, But this one, I actually had to peel layers off of it. No, that's just not going to go with my lighting. You can
It's
sort
good
of see
enough.
how you can sort of see how it's just popped, like the flaky biscuits.
Right.
It just gets poof and flakes off. So
It must
doesn't
be the
happen
amount
the
of,
first time you use it, but if you're doing a big run of fabric, you have to wash that block
yeah.
in between.
I've never had one do that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I guess because we've started using them in the quantity.
And I'm abusive, and I am also, when I'm doing big runs of fabric, it's 5 yards or so. So, because Ayla likes to keep me hopping.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
can
you do
I
10
want
yards
to
for my
do-
kids for PJs? I guess.
I want to do a large quantity of fabric because I want to make Lauren a tunic that's printed with suns and pears. And I've got the block for the pears. That's wonderful. It's his heraldry. But I need to make a block like that for the suns. And that's going to be interesting. It's one I just haven't gotten to. We had a big set of people who were really into doing crafts for a while in the house. Yeah. And then like a couple years ago, everybody just they had to move to the valley. They had to move elsewhere. And we haven't done that much because it's pretty much Lauren and me and a few other people who do our own thing, So we aren't doing the big group things anymore. Although I ran across a bunch of the block printed pouches the other day and I went, well, the blanks for them. So now I need to get them sewn up.
So another thing we really didn't talk about it was on bigger blocks, like how big is too big to hold. So this is one of the first blocks that I carved and I never did any shaping on the backside. And I, probably because I wasn't really happy with the carving on the top side. But what I've found is this is super uncomfortable to stamp. And so I've started like getting nice, soft, round corners. Also that helps because, splinters aren't fun either. But I really like, just making it, stupid glare, making it comfortable on the back to really, if you're going to be smashing this into a table 50 times, you'd rather not have sharp pokey parts. So.
Yep.
Alan, if you're still hanging out with us, I know you had a project to share tonight.
Yeah, I've been discussing this earlier with Dame Joanna. I will be making little inexpensive favors for everybody who helps set up an archery range tomorrow. So these are little favors I'm giving out.
Yay!
Cool.
They look like Greek worry beads, but actually they are a mnemonic memory device. You've got 30 beads on here in groups of 5. 30 being the maximum score you could get on archery. So you just figure out what the score is. You slide the right number of beads on and you just hang this over a button or over your belt or something like that. And then you can go hunt the arrow, or you could pull arrows for other people and you can have 2 or 3 scores. Then you get back to the line, you know exactly what the score is because it's right here.
Very clever.
And really attractive.
So I will be making these as, once I've handed out the first few to the people who help me set up, I'll be making these as largesse too. So these are something that are practical. It may be cheap, it may be tawdry, it may be chintzy, but if it helps me remember what the scores are before I get back to the firing line, it will make my life easier. So I will go and grab something off my bookshelf and I'll be right back.
Oh,
While he's grabbing, can I play show and tell?
please.
Yeah.
So this is my new parasol scabbard.
Oh,
With fancy flowers.
Ooh.
And but wait, once you take the parasol out of its scabbard, it is not just a parasol. It is, as appropriately for Dame Joanna, a heraldic parasol.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
Did you
people
paint
will
that?
know who I am, coming or going.
Did you
I
paint that?
absolutely love it.
Who's under that parasol? Oh, look! I see Dame Joanna's heraldry. That's been my latest fun project.
Did you paint it yourself?
I did.
That's very
I found
fragile
a-
paper. What did you use?
It's not fragile paper. It's fabric. I found it on Amazon, and it is not silk. It's some kind of a ripstop nylon type thing, so I think it should last pretty well.
Oh, that's good.
Shoving it in and out of the scabbard is actually rubbed off a little of the paint, but I don't mind it looking like it's been used. And I just used regular craft paint, so I'm hoping to spray it with something waterproofy, but of course after I made it, it rained for days and days and days and days and days. So maybe this weekend where it's super, super, super hot, maybe I'll do
That'll
that.
do it.
I'm also helping a friend with her inkle loom. She brought it today. We're actually having her birthday party, which I will have to go back to in just a moment. Oh, there's the piece that's woven. And we set it up for her a while back, but she hadn't done it for a while. So she brought it and I was like, oh, this isn't right. And I took it apart and then realized, no, ankle weaving, not card weaving. Nah. So then I had to put it all back together again. Been too long. So
That's pretty cool.
that's been an interesting afternoon.
Well, I'm glad you could take time from the party to join us.
It was, yes, they were doing a thing that was taking a little longer, and I was like, ooh, I'll slip away.
They'll all be in there. Where did she go?
Block printing is something that it is ridiculous that I haven't done yet.
Super fun.
I know. Well, okay, I can't say that. I helped with the bears.
Yeah.
I love carving stamps, love carving stamps.
Did you not also help stamp the site tokens for
Yeah.
audience?
Lions.
For,
Yes, that's what I meant.
that's what you
Lions,
meant.
not bears.
Yeah.
I get lions and bears mixed up sometimes.
lions and tigers
Oh
and
my.
bears. Oh no!
2 tails, 2 heads. Who can keep up?
How
Throw
can
a
I
ribbon in there.
tell which is what? So yes, I want to do that one of these days. I have heraldry. I love heraldry, and yet another place to put it. I guess the thing is I haven't been making fancy enough clothes that block printing made sense. But I did buy 10 yards of linen before this hiatus happened, and it's still 10 yards of linen because I haven't been brave enough to shear it with my gold shears. Dan, someone who knew what they were doing.
You could do it on simple stuff. I mean,
Oh,
I'm
you
inspired.
would think so. You would think so.
I was inspired.
Linen, I'm scared to death.
Captain Hoarder, queen of the conversation. Use the good stuff. Don't wait.
Right.
Don't wait for the perfect project because there will never be one.
No.
Enjoy your cookie.
I know exactly what I want to make. Exactly and precisely. I studied the linens. I bought swatches. I can't afford the dress yet, but I bought the white linen for the underdresses, and I'm too scared to cut those. So you see, I am
underwear,
hampered by
honey.
my
You
terror.
You just chop into underwear.
Yep. Just cut.
I know. It sounds that way. Anyway, I'm looking forward to when we can see people in person again, and I will bring the underdresses that I have, that Moira made, and the underdresses, the fabric that I want it to be, and people can be like, okay, since you don't have a pattern, here's how you turn this thing into a pattern. It should be easy for someone who knows what they're doing. But
Yep. But I totally get it. Once you get past like the 14th century, don't make me
no, I'm 1200. I'm 12, long sleeves.
No,
simple.
I'm like, you give me some rectangles and you give me some squares
Hey,
or a modern
yep.
pattern I can knock off.
Well,
good.
it is your
You know-
rectangular construction point setting that emboldened me enough to make my own clothes in the first place, Baroness.
Well, so I'm working on an Elizabethan shirt, and it's all rectangles,
Yep.
all of
Yep.
it.
Nice. Nice.
Bernadette Banner did a video on pirate shirts, and it like took me back to teenage Morgan. When I was working at House of Fabrics, I got all this black linen, and I had this black linen pirate shirt and a linen gourd skirt. My God, that was the best outfit ever. And now I want to reproduce it.
You should. You totally should. I have completely worn out my pirate shirt. It is in tatters, and my sister promised to make me a new one, but it hasn't happened yet. So, we will see. But it's my favorite shirt for setting up the archery range because there's so much airflow with the sleeves that it's like I'm walking around, and I'm always waving my hands when I'm telling people what to do. I don't think you've noticed that I wave things. No, you hadn't noticed that. But it means there's a constant fan going on. So anyway, I better run. They are waiting for me.
So
I think
good
the
to
dinner
see
gong
your
sounded.
face.
Thank you for joining and sharing your projects. See you soon.
Bye.
Well, Dame Joanna has seen these before. In fact, I made some for her. You were talking about wanting ergonomics for your stamps. Let me hold this up to the camera so you can see it. So I made these and have kind of a cross section. It looks like a bread loaf, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want them, have them all nicely rounded over, but she wanted to have grooves here so that she would put her fingers in the grooves and not in the ink.
Yep. There's just no point of avoiding ink for me. It's going to be on my hands and face and clothes, and there's just, I have given into it. I am a just absolutely messy painter.
You're my kind of person.
Oh man. Yeah, you were talking about printing on your scrap fabric earlier. I actually have my table covered in my scraps so that I can iron them so they're ready to be test prints. But then I got bored with that project and walked away, and it's been about a week and a half. Because who wants to iron in this heat?
I'm lucky I'm on the coast.
Yeah.
It's actually been a little chilly because the marine air pulls up over us when it gets hot over you, because your air is going this way and so ours is going that way. We've had fog. It's been cloudy most of the day. Cloudy enough to make me sleepy. Weirdly enough.
Friday morning, I probably need to head to the coast and stay there until about Tuesday or Wednesday.
Great idea.
I can tell you, if you come out early enough, that the Krabby Lady in Waldport has a lot of spaces open still, both tent and RV. We would go past there every single day. And I know there actually are some spaces open in the park that we're living in down the not the long term, but down by the water, right on the river. That they look fun. We're not going to move our spot, but
yeah,
because in the wintertime those tend to be 5 feet under. This time of year they're looking good.
Well, one of the reasons I had to mute out for a few minutes, my granddaughter Catherine, who is my techie guru, is gone. She's in Eastern Oregon for 6 weeks on an archaeological dig.
Ooh.
She phoned me for a few minutes there. She didn't remember it was A&S night. She is dying over there. They're in Eastern Oregon, up in the high desert.
yeah.
They went for about, I think it was a 12-mile hike today. And it was like, yeah. And she says, well, first we died, and then we froze, because it was sweltering hot. And then they had thunderstorms, and then it got sweltering hot again. And she's in her tent, all locked up. She says, the wind is blowing, and it's pouring rain, and there's lightning. And I'm transcribing my notes because I just learned they're going to keep our notebooks at the end of this, and that's how we get our grade.
Oh, dear.
So she had been scribbling her type. Now she's got to make it legible.
That's always the
Yeah.
fun part.
But she's
Well,
misery for heat.
This heat spell, I mean, the big headline is that triple digits from Arizona to Washington State.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not much relief in sight. Tomorrow we're supposed to have, I think they're saying 84 or 85 for us here.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna mow my lawn one last time for the summer.
I think mine's dead now.
Well, mine will be because I don't water it, but I
Yeah,
want
I
it
don't either.
short and dead, not tall and dead.
Right.
We have the city power is doing replacing all our meters. So Tag's been injured and hasn't been able to do any lawn work, and I always have a bad back, so I'm like, I'm not jumping up to do it. So, but it's like, oh, now it has to be done because they have to be able to like walk through our yard.
You can't find a
And I
neighborhood kid?
Well, he got the lawn mowed close to where we need it, but it needs like a weed eater that is under the control of somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that's
So.
not something I'd give to a neighborhood kid.
No, and well, I mean, I have one in my living room that's, good enough, but yeah, no, my wee little boy is going to be in high school next year, and he's
Dang.
about 4 inches shorter than his 6'3" uncle, so I'm horrified.
Time flies, huh, Mom?
Wait, what? He's overhearing me in the other room.
Well, I am going to go because I need to water my garden.
Yeah.
See you
Or
outside in your beautiful gazebo and your nice
I
little
am.
yard.
I am, and the garden over there.
Oh, how
peas,
pretty.
The peas and tomatoes are all begging for water.
Oh, and there's your neighbor.
Yes, also with a impressive garden.
All right.
So, good seeing everyone.
Good to have you here tonight.
I think I'm gonna go water myself because I'm starting to glisten in an unwholesome way.
Thank you for being
the
here and sharing.
opportunity to blab about my favorite subjects. So.
Oh, anytime. Anytime. Come join us every time. There's always something more.
Always trying to remember it's the kid brain, the heat, and the crazy pants, and yeah.
I'm blaming mine on lack of sleep. My granddaughter blames it on my age. She thinks I'm of advanced years.
Yeah.
And she might be right, but
I think it's brain chemistry that's still just needing a few tweaks.
Yeah.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
You too. Thank you, Baroness, for being here. Anya, I have missed your weekend Sunday gatherings for several weeks now because we've been getting this young lady ready to go to the Eastern Oregon.
Mhm.
I am determined to be back there next weekend.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
I just put the event thing up.
Wonderful.
It's only going up on the house. I am not sure whether it's okay to put up on everybody else's sites.
It's always
because
okay.
it is just us.
It's always okay to share it on the baronial side.
Well, the link the link to the event only shows up on the house, but I usually put the report up. And well, it's a matter of going over to the House Capuchin thing. I've got everything set to public, as far as I know. I think.
Yeah,
I've
but
got
then
it set to
Facebook
public.
changed their rules, so
That's why I'm saying I think so.
yeah. Very
So
frustrating.
if somebody runs across something weird, let me know. Oh, I think that was the last of the stuff that I have to work on tonight. If I can just sit here
Wow,
and be
that's
alone.
nice. That's very nice.
Yeah. I've got one of my next projects that I'm hoping to get to. I got corners.
Adieu, Alan.
For my... Is he heading out?
Alan left us.
Oh, I wanted to say something to him about the doll project, Bartholomew babies. But I got these corners for my big sewing box.
Ellen,
And
are you? Hang on just a minute, Anya. Ellen, is that you saying goodbye? Okay. I can't hear her. She's
you're muted.
Messaged us. She sent a chat.
Ah,
Said it's
okay.
dinner time and lovely to see us all. Good to see you again. We'll look for you next time. Okay, sorry, Anya, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's not a problem. Not a problem if people need to bail. I'm usually the one that's bailing, but I got a 2-hour nap this afternoon. But I got corners for the sewing box. It had lost 2 feet. And so now I have corners that have little feet. So she's heading out too?
No, I just asked her to unmute because she had been invisible and quiet, and I wanted to see her and chat with her too.
Sorry, I'm 5 months pregnant and vacationing on the face of the sun. So I'm.
Oh, yeah. So sorry.
But
So
Alan has
corners for
had,
your box.
yeah, and Alan has for like, I don't know, most 2 years had a set of silhouettes for Bartholomew babies, which are a turned doll. They were very, very cheap, right down to the tail end of period. And I'm not certain they were called Bartholomew babies at that point, but they certainly were later. And so it's something that a term that people recognize. But they're one of the variations on the stump dolls, which originally were just carved, but then by that point they were turned because they could do it quickly. And they don't have arms, they don't have legs. It's just a head and a torso. And then you put arms on them with like a braid of fabric that you kind of tack the shoulders in back, and legs the same way if you want them. Although if it's a girl, they usually don't have legs. And I'm hoping he's going to do up like a whacking lot of them. He was talking about the multicultural woods that he's got to turn it out of, which I thought was really cool. But we've got 2 people in the house who want to do, who want to dress some. I mean, I've been wanting to do this for years. I want to have like half a dozen for the toys display that I do. But we're going to be basically saying, hey, who wants one to dress?
That would be so much fun.
Yeah, they don't have to be fancy dresses either, because the few extant ones are pretty much just clothing of the people, whatever they were wearing at the time. So I think that's another, well, along with the balls, I think that's another one I want to try to encourage, because it's, well, we're talking late period Barbie dolls, you know.
And it's something that anybody could do. And they're fairly durable, so little kids could easily play with them at any event and probably not destroy them.
Actually, the worst problem with them is the little kids who get to whacking each other with them.
Yeah.
They are heavy enough.
And their arms fall off.
Well, yeah, but arms fall off of dolls all the time, and it's not difficult to put them back. There are even a couple of them that they think are actually late 1400s that they think may have been turned, sort of a precursor thing, that are simply wrapped in rags, bits and pieces of rags, and and tied on. So they were probably dressed by the children themselves.
Yeah, I think I saw one that had a gob of wool tucked in under a strip of rag, as if there was some hair under a scarf or a head covering of some sort.
That one is fairly. There's one that is painted, but a lot of them weren't. They were just straight wood. And the one that's painted is kind of interesting because she's actually got a cap, a formed cap with the brim turned back. That kind of like a almost like a sunbonnet, but not a sunbonnet suit type sunbonnet, but the earlier ones where it was, you've got
sort of the early flying nun look.
Yeah. That kind of thing. And it could be a hood or an attempt at a hood, but without the base. It might have come off because a lot of the hoods have that funny turned back thing too.
And a snorkel face.
Yes. But
that
now
would be
I'm
a lot
like
of fun.
riding off on my own hobby horse. Sorry about that.
Christine, are you having a boy or a girl?
A girl.
Oh, well, there you go. Jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
I do want to say, as a third generation Czech American, I'm always excited to see the eggs, because nobody try to think of what the Czechs do, and it's like, well, we have blood transfusions and beer.
And eggs.
Electric car. And Veteran Hill. And the 100 Years' War. It's nice to run across another Czech.
Yeah. We didn't get much of it in the family, though, because great-grandpa Kovar married a Norwegian immigrant, and so it was only English in the family and full assimilation. But
I still consider myself to be Czech or Czech American, even though I'm third generation. So, but I learned to speak a lot of it and grew up with my non-English speaking family, where they spoke Czech to me and I spoke English to them, and we got along just fine. It's too hot to make gulacha, which is what I've been wanting to do.
We just had hot dogs and sauerkraut tonight with my family's sauerkraut, actually. So that's always exciting.
Yum.
That's the only thing that got passed down, pretty much. People think they don't like sauerkraut; they just don't make it right.
Do you make it in a crock or in jars?
I buy jarred sauerkraut, but when we cook it, it's with apples and onions and caraway seeds, and it takes away a lot of the acidity that people think they don't like in it. So,
I actually learned to make it a couple years ago. We made several jars for our big German feast that we had a while back, and I can remember my grandmother, excuse me, making it. The problem is that when you put it in, when you do it in commercial quantities, it's always too sour. And she used to make two varieties. She made one that was a winter pickle one, where you took the vinegar and the spices and just threw it in on top of the cabbage and stuck it in the refrigerator, and as well as the fermented variety. And the fermented one, she always used onions, kohlrabi, and caraway seed. So, yeah.
My dad made it a few times in a 10-gallon crock, but I think he did straight cabbage. So it was pretty sour.
Wake you up.
Yeah.
Well, zeli isn't supposed. Zeli, which is the Czech word for it, isn't really supposed to be super, super sour. It's supposed to be sour enough to contrast with things like pork, greasy meats, but not like pickles. It's not supposed
to pucker your face.
That kind of,
not supposed to be an eating challenge.
Yes, yeah. Well, and of course, I did have one of my aunts who was from the border, closer to Hungary, from Slovakia, who put hot peppers in her sauerkraut, and the uncles would all chow down on it, but it was kind of one of those endurance tests,
Wow.
I hated it. One bite and that was it, and I'm fairly certain the bite went all over the backyard.
That would have been me.
Yeah. Although the really good one, really good dish, the one that I really want to do again for a feast, is the fried cheese with pickled mushrooms on a bed of sauerkraut, fried kraut, but made from the icebox recipe. Tells you how far back that goes.
Fried kraut. Now that's new.
I was raised by my grandmother, and I still say icebox. And if you ever want to startle people, that's how you'll do it. You get that double take. I said icebox.
And I do things like talking about watching the radio.
Yeah. It's like couch, sofa, and divan. People know where you're from.
Yep.
Well, I grew up in San Diego, but my grandmother who raised me is from New York, so it led to a lot of quirks, which is what happens when you come from a Marine Corps family.
Yep, a lot of travel, a lot of exposure. So where are you now?
Now currently I'm basically in Idaho, but I'm living in Tacoma, Washington. I married a Washingtonian. So I was in Calafia, and now we're in Blatha and Orr. In Ansteorra. So, but we were moving around for a few years, and this is we're settled in a place, and all the jobs are settled, and we're gonna get back into the game. So
you're currently in Idaho visiting, or?
My in-laws have a lake house right on the border. They live in Spokane.
Nice.
So we drive 6 hours across the state to die in the very inland watery desert, I guess. I don't know. I'm a coastal girl. I was born on a beach. This is my hellscape, but it's nice to be near family.
Yeah.
When I lived inland, I felt like I was going to dry up and blow away, and I'm so happy out here by the ocean.
Well, it's even. Go ahead.
I loved living over. We lived in. We'll call it Tillamook. It was a little bit north of there, but I just loved living over there. And then we moved up to Alaska for a year and lived on an island. Oh my God, I loved that. I really miss the ocean. Really miss the ocean.
When we moved up to Washington, we moved to Carnation, which is, I don't know how far inland it is, but it's the most inland I've certainly ever lived. And I hated it. And so now we're back to, we live a maybe 10-minute walk from the Sound.
Oh, nice.
Our proper house. So
yeah.
It's,
really nice.
We don't have any beaches like San Diego, but at least I got the water. So I'll take what I can get. And Mac can still get to horses. So.
Well, we're actually living upriver, but the shop is a block and a half from the All Sea Bay. And if you go the other direction, if you could walk through there, it's about 3 blocks, or you go a mile and a half uphill and to the state park. And right there. So I haven't been to the beach yet this winter or this summer.
Oh no.
Yeah, driven there, but not gotten out of the car and actually gotten down on the beach. And it's one of those things I keep meaning to take my walker home with me so I can walk down from where our spot is down the hill to the river. And I haven't even gotten that far yet.
You got to do this for you.
Yeah, which reminds me, Sam. Oh, he's back there somewhere again. Oh, well. Hopefully I'll remember to ask him to put it in the car in the morning again. We don't have any Wi-Fi at home. I have to be at the shop to be able to get on the computer.
Yeah.
Is that because there isn't any at home, or is it just cheaper to pay just one and not 2?
Well, it's that when the managers go to bed, if the Wi-Fi cuts out, because too many people are watching Netflix, it doesn't come back up until morning. And so, after 11 o'clock at night, forget it.
That's frustrating.
And especially this time of the year, because we've got more people coming into the the spots down by the river, visitors, temporary people, as opposed to the long-termers like where we are up top. But I am loving having a garden again. Oh my God, that's so nice.
So where is your garden?
It's around the side of our space. Nice. We have the space that the house is sitting in, and then a space which is 8 feet wide, and the 8 feet, 10 feet, and then a concrete pad, which is the length of the space as well. And we use the one end of it to park the car on, and then we've got our little porch so I can get into the house. And then the rest of it is just surrounded by plant pots. Oh, everything's nice. In buckets and big pots. And I've got a cute series of these they're about this big metal pails, and with a hanger, and they're hanging off of the edge of the porch, and they've got things in them like radishes and nasturtiums and carrots and stuff.
Oh, how
and so I'm having fun with that. And I've got several different kinds of tomatoes, and hopefully tomorrow one of the local places that's a nursery is doing a 50% off sale. It's the end of their season, and hopefully we'll manage to get there in the morning. But we missed it today. But I want a few more things because I've got mint. And it's like, I have no idea what kind of mint it is at this point. It's all inbred. It started as lemon balm, peppermint, spearmint, and apple mint. And by now it all looks the same. So I don't know.
It's feral mint.
And what's that?
It's feral mint.
something like that. Or one of my friends called it miscegenation mint.
Yeah.
And I've got a big pot of oregano and a big pot of horseradish and onions and a bucket and a blueberry bush and like 3 tomatoes. And I've got a marjoram now. I have no dill this year. None of the seed came up. And then I do a lot of planting of vegetable ends, especially after a feast in the winter. I always plant the onions and the parsnip tops and the turnip tops and the carrot tops. And I've got several.
Works really well too.
Yes, yes. The celery, though, I think the most recent one, I don't think it made it. It's out front here at the shop, and I cut it back, and then I think something got in and chewed on it after I cut it. There are, well, here in town, there are rats. We can't get away from them. I mean, thankfully, there are none in the building, but all over the place outside.
They're all over this community. In this part of town, we're just overrun with them. Yeah.
And my big fennel is now, it's a good 8 feet tall, and I think it's got 2 more to go this year. It's still got growth ends on it, but I put another fennel in at home, and I've got the beans all came up over the last couple of days.
You have quite a garden for having no property.
Right. Yeah, but I love plants, and I've got flats of sedum that I usually sell those off in the winter at the shop. And I just realized my cash register did something strange. Sorry. And I started a bunch of geranium cuttings.
Oh, good.
And I'm hopefully going to have like a whole batch of those pretty quick here. And my sweetie bought me a huge hanging basket for Mother's Day, which has all kinds of bright colors in it, which I really like.
Aww.
And I also have a lot of succulents. I've got one of the strawberry pots full of them, half a dozen types. And so, yeah, so I'm happy because for several years now, the only place I had to put plants was here at the shop, and they don't do well here. The windows face west, it gets hot. And I can't always get at them to water because I can't bend to reach them. And but now with a lot of stuff outside, that's really helping. That's wonderful. And the rose that I started from a cutting from our friend Jeannie's place is blooming this year. And I'm making rose sugar.
Oh, I love it.
I have red rose again. So I'm making rose sugar. It's just as it blooms, the petals get washed, they get added, and then a little sugar every couple of days.
At what point do you pick the petals? Do you wait for the blossom to be pretty fully opened?
Blow. No, not fully open, but to it blow just enough that you can see all the way to the seed head.
Okay.
And if you have a rose that is bitter, and I remember this from the big bush at Jeannie's, the petals, the blooms are only about that big around. And the petals, even though they have the white spot at the base, that white spot isn't bitter. You can actually eat them, eat the petals straight. But if you have like a big one, like the hybrid teas where they get to be like that big, if they have white spots at the bottom, almost always those are bitter. So you have to take a pair of scissors to them.
Oh.
And just get rid of that part, and then they're great. I mean, red roses are wonderful for drying and for making rose sugar. These end up going into Shrewsbury cakes, usually.
I know a few recipes with rose water, but I haven't run into anything with rose sugar.
Yep. It actually, you use the amount of rose sugar that you would normally use of your sugar, and it's great.
Is the flavor noticeably rose?
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you use that in shortbread?
Maybe. I've never had enough.
Okay.
Because I use a 1, 2, 3, 4 recipe on shortbread. 1 sugar, 2 butter, 3 flour, and 4 pie pans. And in that one, it's not enough. But if you get rugosa roses, this is a standard rose. But if you get rugosa roses, those are the ones with those incredible amounts of thorns that have the great big rose hips on them in the fall. And they don't have separate petals. They actually almost look more like a hollyhock flower, just when they open up. But rugosas have a strong enough flavor that you can dry those or freeze them, better yet, and add them into your shortbread, and you've got good rose shortbread. And they're a very prolific rose.
Now I have to go rose shopping.
Yeah. That's my next thing. I want to get a rose, but I'm thinking what I may do is go back to where we used to live and see how many of them have seated themselves in the public pathway. And because if they have, I'm going to just flat dig some up. I had a great big patch. It was 8 feet long by the 6 foot of the slope.
Wow.
And it was trying to push itself out in the main part of the garden. And it had succeeded by a couple of feet before we had to move. So they're very prolific. They're actually worse than bamboo, but they make a great hedge if you're trying to keep people out. We've had people at various points get caught in them, and it's
very effective.
It's effective. It's also immensely funny if there are people that you don't want to have get into your place. And because I'm that kind of rude.
I'm not sure they're the rude one in that case.
No, I don't think that's rude.
And deer love them. If you're having trouble keeping deer out of the hybrid teas, they plant a rugosa.
Your rugosa survived the deer?
Oh, yeah.
Because of the thorns?
It's partially because of the thorns, but because they lick at the leaves and take those off and the blooms, but they won't try to chomp on the stems. Sometimes they'll clear almost all the new growth off, and as long as the thing has a decent root, it comes right back.
Good.
I've actually had one of the plants that was at the far end of the garden. It was by itself, and it was fairly new. It was one of those I had dug a little itty bitty one out of the pathway and then just replanted it at the far end of the garden. Must have been about that big. And I did that, I think in February, something like that. And in June, a bunch of the deer came along. We had a herd in the green space down behind our house. It's a sewer easement and the city treats it like a green space. So anyway, they came along and they ate the thing right down to the ground. And a month later, it was back.
Wow.
Yeah, it was sticking up above the ground. And that was had to have been, the seed had to have landed, or the root. They grow by runners, just like bamboo, which is part of the problem. And I don't know which it was, whether it was a runner or a seed pod that burped into the pathway. But it couldn't have been more than a year old. And it still, came back from that.
That's a resilient plant.
Yeah. There's a insurance company just around the corner from the shop that has a hedge there that for a couple years there was nobody in the building. They were working from home, and apparently the city got hold of them and said, can you do something about this? And when they went and looked at the thing, it had eaten the 6 feet of sidewalk and stuff out into the street. It had actually gone that far.
Wow.
And because people were starting to complain, because that road is how you get to the post office here. So they couldn't walk to the post office because there's no sidewalk. But they hacked it back. The thing it must have been last fall. They hacked it back so that it was even with the sidewalk and a foot high. And this year we drove past it a couple days ago, and the thing is already 6 feet high.
Wow.
And it's covered with flowers. Yeah. Lauren made the 5 gallons of rose mead that we did, that we still haven't finished drinking up, which is why we haven't made any more. But he made that from rugosa roses. And amazing stuff. Yeah. have no idea what he's doing back there. I hope you guys can't hear the mechanical noises.
Sounds like a
You know,
power
there's
saw.
nothing concerning about mysterious drill noises at all.
It always reminds me of that scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where off in the woods you hear, and then out wheels the rabbit.
The Trojan horse.
Trojan
Yeah, the rabbit.
The Trojan rabbit.
Trojan rabbit. Yeah. That's such a funny movie.
I love that movie. We went to see that a couple of times with a whole group in garb.
My dad and I went in garb when it first came out, and for years, I had a pair of the coconuts.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And because that was what our theater did, was you got coconuts if you showed up in costume.
Oh, how cool.
And yeah. And my daddy was always game for stuff like that, which was fun. Yeah,
it's
that
definitely a cult movie.
Oh yeah, it is. I'm trying to remember even what year that was. Good grief! I went to my first SCA event in 1971.
Yeah, it was early 70s.
What's that?
I think it was early 70s, wasn't it? Early to mid 70s.
It had to have been, yeah. Yeah.
Christine, do you know what we're talking about? You're so young.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Yes.
I'm not
She
that
said
young.
that with recognition in her voice. I love it.
Not that young.
I grew up on Brit Night.
There you go.
Yeah. It is a fun movie. Run away, run away.
Great things.
Yeah, exactly. Big teeth. And is it a European swallow or an African swallow? All of those.
Don't know.
Every so often somebody. Yeah. Well, I don't know. One of my kids was quoting that. And one of his friends was like, "What in the hell are you quoting?" And because, well, I mean, Arthur's almost 40, but he grew up with, we would rent it every so often, and he knows all the jokes because he took the a VHS tape that we had of it and wore it all the way out, which was not uncommon for our batch of kids. But and his friends were like, "What in the hell?" That was funny. Oh, I'm starting to babble, aren't I?
I'm enjoying it.
Starting.
That's what socializing's for.
I tell you, if it hadn't been for Zoom keeping us sane for the last year and a half, 2 years almost, year and a half.
Well, I'm hoping that once we can actually do ANS back in person again, that somebody sets up a link somewhere in there so that I can keep playing.
That's my intention. We're going to do a hybrid ANS night.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy having folks from all over.
Yeah, it's fun.
We learn a lot more. We have a lot more to share.
It definitely makes it a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying the way they're doing Athenaeum this time. I've had a chance to go through the projects and look at it. I'm not going to be able to get involved with any of the one-on-ones with people over the weekend because the shop's open. But I have learned a lot off of those. And somebody did a ragdoll project.